What's up, out there? Welcome back to the channel. And welcome back to another Waffle House. Um, yeah, we're back. It's a Tuesday night. I want to start doing midweek, but it seems that I want to do the Waffle House at the end, but it seems that yeah, bro, it's a little bit tough because we're doing middle of the week games, and I want to do it on a Wednesday. But maybe when we get back to our normal, scheduled programming, then I might do it on the weekends. But welcome back to the Waffle House, where we just kind of chill, we relax, and we talk about pretty much everything. What I wanted to do with this episode is I wanted to talk about me. I want to talk about the channel. And I want to go through frequently asked questions because I get asked a lot of questions. Being an American in the UK who likes football, who likes American football, I take a lot of questions on kind of everything, and I thought this would be an opportunity to just kind of get to know the community and the community get to know me. I've written them down, so we'll just start with um, the most popular question I get. And the most popular question I get is, how did I get to the UK? Starting off, if you don't know by now, I'm from Miami, Florida. Born in Miami, Florida. Raised in a little town called Belglade. Anybody from Florida, you probably know what Belglade is. A small agricultural town. And yeah, I'm from South Florida. Um, I lived in Spain for a little bit. I lived in North Carolina for a little bit. And leaving Spain, I came back to the States. I think it was around 2017. And I had the opportunity to study abroad, pretty much. But it wasn't really a study abroad thing. It was kind of doing the whole degree abroad. Because usually study abroad is, you do a semester. But this was a chance to get my degree overseas. I had an opportunity to go to college after leaving Spain. And I mean, honestly, I wanted to go to University of Miami, but if you know anything about University of Miami, it is expensive. It it's like $40,000 uh, a semester or a year or whatever, and I was like, that's a lot of money. And then in my mind, I was like, I could pay 40 grand to stay in Miami, or I could spend 30 and go to you know Australia, the UK. And living in Spain, I love Spanish football. At that time, 2017, I'd already been to Arsenal, and it just seemed like the opportunity to come to the UK, maybe complete a few years of a degree, and then yeah, see what it did. So yeah, I went and I applied to school in the UK, and I got into the University of Southampton. And I was gassed, man. I was gassed because not a lot of people from where I am go to college, let alone go to college abroad. So I did it. I got to Southampton. I enjoyed it. Then decided to get my master's, and yeah, after my master's, I didn't want to go home, man. I was already hooked. I like the culture. The weather's, I mean, you know what British weather is. It rains all the time. So yeah, it was just a thing of seeing what it did. I didn't want to go back to America right away, and here we are in the UK. I've been here 7 years. So I've been here since 2018. I think was it September this year? It'll make 8 years, and it's been a great journey, man. It's been a great journey, and the way that my life has worked out to this, especially when it comes to Arsenal, I just kind of lucked up into just some good situations. I started supporting Arsenal, and that's the next question, by the way. That's usually the next one is how'd you get into football? How'd you start supporting Arsenal? Being from South Florida, it's really hard not to be into sports, especially American football. As you can see, this is all my memorabilia. You've got baseball here, even though this is an old team. You've got Zach Thomas, American football, Miami Hurricanes. So being a South Florida kid, bro, you just into sports. You're into football. You're into American football, baseball, pretty much anything where you can run around with a ball. That's kind of how I grew up. NBA. So I've always watched football, man. I've always watched football, but it's usually international. I didn't have access to the Prem. I usually had, access to the Copa America, the Gold Cup, stuff like that. Um, so I've always been kind of into football, and then living in Spain, Sevilla is probably like my first love. Um, but Arsenal is my true love. That's why I always tell people Sevilla is my first love, Arsenal is my true love. Um, but yeah, living near Seville and going to Sevilla matches, I went to a few. It was amazing, man. It was a great time. Um, the culture around football. And then, one of my friends was like, man, if you like Spanish football, you need to get into Prem. And, you know, I started watching a few other teams. I'm not going to name those teams. But for me, joining a football club, because I've been born into a football club, with American football. But joining a football club, I wanted to join a club that kind of reflected me, in my kind of ideals and kind of reflected the teams I already supported. And at first, I looked at Chelsea. I was like, nah, it's not me. And then Liverpool, and I like Liverpool. I was watching Liverpool at the time because I like Daniel Sturridge. Daniel Sturridge is still my favorite player. He's one of the few non-Arsenal players I have. Alongside Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Messi, Neymar. The usuals. But I really like Daniel Sturridge, and I thought it was gonna be Liverpool. I thought it was gonna be Liverpool. But it just didn't feel like the perfect fit. And then I remember, my wife we were shopping for a kit, and she picked Arsenal because she liked the red shirt and the white sleeves. And we lived in Spain, and then we were coming to London for the first time, and she was like, listen, the Emirates is not too far. It's on the train line. Let's go do a tour. Um, and yeah, we did the tour, and within like 10 minutes of the tour, I was hooked, bro. I was hooked. I won't lie to you. I saw the gold trophy. I saw Arsene Wenger, and back then, when you did the tour, you could actually see into Wenger's office, so you see how kind of meticulous he was, how organized he was. And I wish I could show a picture. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but the dressing room, from what it looked like in 2016, 2017, night and day different from what it looks like now. Um, but it just felt like homely. It wasn't like super modern. They still had that wooden bit in the middle, and the seats were like nice cubby holes. But they were saying like how it was one of the nicest dressing rooms in the Prem. They were talking about the history, and yeah, man, I saw the capsule in the floor, and just hearing about hearing, because you did the tour, and I like to speak to stewards. I've always liked to speak to the stewards and the people who actually work at the club, and you just ask them, what your best memories are, how long you've been supporting the club. And I had a couple, man, that were just like, yeah, I've been supporting the club since I was little. And I feel it. I understand. I've been supporting the Hurricanes since I knew what American football was, and I've been to the Orange Bowl. And then the parallels, as I always draw, is seeing the Emirates and seeing what's it called now, Hard Rock Stadium. There's a lot of similarities between kind of the Hurricanes and Arsenal. In 2004, the Hurricanes were kind of at the height. They had just lost the national championship. We were thinking they'd be back, and they went for a run of 20 years. I mean, we just made it to the national championship for the first time since then, since that 2003. 22 years of not being in a national championship. And then on top of that, moving from the Orange Bowl, the ancestral home, like where we started, where we won all these championships, it's gotten demolished for something else. And it's like hearing that from the Arsenal, moving from Highbury, and they kept the facade up, but it's been made into flats, and like the 20-year wait for the Prem. And I was like, man, this seems very close to what I feel with the Hurricanes. And it just, for me, everything was coming into kind of together. And then one of the guys was like, listen, if you want to see it, if you want to see, history, you want to see Arsenal history, go outside the ground, take a right, go to Avenel Road, walk down there, and you'll see it. And I was like, see what? He's like, you'll know it when you see it. And we walked down there, man, and I saw the facade of Hybrid. And even though I've never watched the game there, I've never actually been in the stand. It's just the aura, like it's the aura that you can feel coming from the stadium. And I remember Thierry Henry walking past it as well, and you just feel that there was something beautiful and amazing there. And yeah, from that day to this one, I've been in love with the Arsenal, man. I won't lie to you, I've been in love with Arsenal. My closet, much to my wife's chagrin, is full of Arsenal kit. From that day to this one, I've got training tops, and I got you know away third. I've got some old ones. If you guys have tuned in before, you've seen the one from Highbury last year, which is probably my favorite because I like burgundy. I think burgundy is a great color, so I have that one as well. But yeah, so ever since that day, been an Arsenal fan, and then you know once I left Spain, I was like, man, it'd be great to study in the UK, and I came and studied in Southampton, and I just lucked upon one of my coaches being an Arsenal fan, and the even luckier thing was he went to the same unit I did. He knew the same people, and then he was like, "Yeah, I'm a season ticket holder. I've been a season ticket holder for ages. My dad's a season ticket holder," and I was like, "That's amazing." And one day he was just like, "Hey, you want to go see your first match?" And I was gassed, man. I was gassed. Big up AJ. I see you in the chat. Thanks for popping in. Um, yeah, man, I was gassed that I had the opportunity to watch Arsenal. I was gassed that I had the opportunity to see them in person. I'd seen Real Madrid in person. I'd seen Atletico Madrid in person. Um, and seeing Arsenal for the first time. And I will tell you guys, I'll be honest with you guys, we lost that match. And I remember it. I was so gassed that I could see the Arsenal. It's painted over the fact that we lost. And I remember who we lost to. We lost to Brighton. And it was a match we probably shouldn't have lost. I honestly want to say as well, I think, because I pulled the program out, I think Freddie Ljungberg was in charge. I think he was the interim at the time because I still had a program. And we lost that match. And I just remember coming out of there, and I was gassed. And my friend was like, "I'm sorry, man. I thought we was going to beat Brighton." And I was like, "It's all right." The crazy thing is, the last couple of times I've gone there, it's been that same kind of feeling. Like, I'm so happy to watch Arsenal because, as an American fan, as someone who kind of joined this club, you don't really get to see many matches, as an American. You don't really get the opportunity to see many matches. And I'm fortunate enough to say that I've been to 10 matches. I've been to the Champions League. I've been to an FA Cup match. I was at the PSG match that we lost the first leg. I was actually at this last one with Manchester United. And I've been so fortunate to be able to watch matches. And it's great. It's great to be able to do that. But the last couple have been losses, and it's kind of, you come out of there. And now that I go a little bit more regularly, I probably go to 2 or 3 matches a year. Now I go a little bit more regularly, I can actually be, kind of perturbed. I've gotten over kind of that touristy, I'm at the match. Now I'm just kind of like, man, I wasted my Sunday watching this dross. Like, it's like that, So I'm very privileged to have done that. But that's how I started with Arsenal. And I don't regret it, man. I could have chosen any team. I could have chosen City at the time. We're flying, I think. And this is 2015, 2016. So, City were flying, Chelsea were winning, Liverpool, thanks for the likes as usual. Liverpool were kind of moving, and I don't know, man. I chose Arsenal, and I remember the first year that I chose Arsenal. That 2015, 2016, 2016, 2017, the first couple of years, watching Bayern just destroy us 10-2, like that is a humbling experience. And people will say, "Oh, you joined us, for the glory." No, not really. Getting Pam. And the reason I put Aaron Ramsey in the thumbnail is because that's the first trophy I saw. It's the first, and that's why I love the FA Cup, because it's the first trophy I saw. And at that time I still had a very basic understanding kind of how many trophies you can win. But for me, being like I said, being an American, we don't have play-in tournaments. We don't have side tournaments. It's Super Bowl or bust. It's national championship or bust. So winning the FA Cup to me, as an Arsenal fan coming in, I was gassed. And then we won it again during COVID, and I was gassed again. And now we're still waiting on something. But I don't regret. I don't regret making the decision. If I, knowing what I know now and having an opportunity, I would choose Arsenal a million times over. Because I've gotten something, I've gained something that I don't think I would gain at any other club. Um, I go into that and I talk about, I talk to the stewards and the people that work there, and I remember, a couple times, and I'll share a couple stories with you because this is the Waffle House, and that's what we do. We waffle. Um, I went to a tour by myself, and I was just walking around. I think I was in uni still, and I had a day off, and I was like, I think I'm gonna go to London. This is how easy it was for me to go to London as well. I think London is an hour and a half, 2 hours train ride from Southampton at the time. So I get in there and I go and I'm walking around and I'm talkative, man. It's crazy because I'm an introvert extrovert, but um, I walk around and I'm talking to the guys who work in the tour, and I'm asking them like, "Are you Arsenal fans?" Because some people work at Arsenal. They work at Arsenal for the opportunity. They don't, they might not be fans. But I had one, and he was an older gentleman, and he was telling me like his earliest stories of like Highbury, and his dad taking him and him being in the stands, and seeing things like Liam Brady, seeing Anfield '89, like just seeing those things. And for me, I love that, man. I like my degree is in sociology and psychology. So I like hearing people's stories. I like hearing people's experiences, and just hearing this man speak of just the the pride he had being an Arsenal fan. And you know, this around the 8-8-5, the finishing eighth and fifth, and just hearing the pride that he had in Arsenal. And I never forget it. So I do the tour, we have a conversation. I'm like, thanks so much for sharing me. And I walk around. And then I go into the museum. And if you've never been to the Emirates, the museum is actually outside of the stadium. Um and it's you would think it'd be bigger, but it's just a small museum. It's nice, you got a statue in there, you've got kind of all the Arsenal things in there. And I was just, I like walking through there. And I come out and he's like, "Hey, I got something for you." And I just met this man. I don't know this man from anything, but he said, "I had something for you." And what it was a book, a fever pitch. Um, but it was one of the ones that they gave the members, I want to say back in Highbury. Like it seemed like it had been there for a while. Like it had been sitting in like a back closet, um, because it looked a little bit aged. It was either late Highbury, like 2006, or early Emirates, but it looked like a members version. And he said, "Listen, I want you to read this. I want you to have this, because I liked our conversation." And I actually had that guy sign the book, and I still have the book as well. And I've read the book. I've read Highbury. I've read Tony Adams' book. But for me, like those moments, um, you know, going into random pubs, talking to people, that lets me know I kind of made the right decision when it came to um, the Arsenal. I've been to supporters bars in Bucharest. I've been to a supporters bar. I wandered in one in Copenhagen. I didn't know it was a supporters bar. I thought they were just showing the game, and I walked in there and they had Arsenal Copenhagen in there. I was like, lucky. Um, I've been to North Carolina. I've been to ones in Florida, and I'll talk about that in a minute because that's another question that I get. But um, every time I've gone, any country I've been to, if I go to Spain or I go to Italy, and thank you AJ for sharing it, appreciate it. Um, if I go to Spain or I go to Italy, every time I've gone to an Arsenal supporters bar, it's like you just one of the guys, man. Like you come in, and I bring my wife in there too. She's now casual. She watches, I think, because I'm just so passionate about it. She watches as well, even though she kind of started into it. She'll watch it because it makes me happy. Um, but yeah, every time we go, you talk about people's experience loving the Arsenal, and that for me is different than anything I had. Like if I want to talk to somebody about the Dolphins or I want to talk to somebody about the Hurricanes, funny enough, in UK it's actually a little bit easier. Um, but it's not like if I go to Bucharest, if I go to Spain, if I go to Portugal, when you wear the Arsenal top, somebody's gonna stop you and talk to you about Arsenal. I mean, I work in a hospital, and I can't tell you the amount of people that I wear when you go into the hospital. Um, I just like to wear my Arsenal jacket, and the amount of people that stop you and talk to you about Arsenal or talk to you about football is amazing, man. And I think that's the feeling. That's the good feeling. Letting me know that I made the right decision. So that's my Arsenal journey. That's how I got into Arsenal. And like I said, I don't regret a thing. Even though some of my friends might say I'm negative, I'm the Donna dopamine. I like having a good time. Every time I watch the Arsenal, it's like watching the Arsenal for the first time. Whether I'm happy at the end or I'm sad at the end, it's just always for lack of a better term, it gives you butterflies every time I watch them. I always get that, and that's how I know that they are the true love. Because I get that when I watch the Hurricanes, I get that when I watch the Dolphins. You know, whether it's on TV in person, like I get that. So yeah, this always feel like it was for me. So, second question I always get is how do I how do I find fandom in the UK versus the US? And this is a question I always get. And the thing I think that British people always kind of compare the Prem to is the NFL. And I don't think that's the right comparison. Um, Due to the fact that the NFL, for me, if you know your British sport, is kind of like rugby. Like, rugby, like the rugby union teams, or was it rugby league teams? I never know the difference. But like, the 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 Leicester Tigers and the Northampton Saints, like those teams, if they wanted to, they could move from Leicester to Durham if they wanted to. They could move, from Northampton to Southampton if they wanted to, if they got the support. And that's how I feel like it is. Whereas the Prem, Arsenal ain't moving. Yeah, people tell you, oh, they moved from Woolwich, but we're talking about 100 years ago. Like Arsenal, as they are now, they will be in London. No one's gonna move Arsenal to Edinburgh, even though that's not England. But I'm just saying, like, you can't just up the team and say, yeah, I don't want to be in London anymore. And I think the only sport that we have that's like that, the only level of sport that we have that's like that is collegiate sport. The Hurricanes, I know they're going to be in Miami because they're the University of Miami. You cannot leave Miami. Now, granted, right now where we technically are, we are on the border of Miami-Dade County and Broward County. So we almost out of Miami. But technically we're still in Miami. The university won't change. It will always be the University of Miami. The University of Georgia will always be in Georgia. The University of Alabama, Oregon, same. And I think that when it comes to fandom and tribalism, I think that the fandom of college sports, especially college American football, is more like Prem and more like European fandom than I think the NFL is. I think the NFL has become. I mean, I could go down the route. I think it's just become people grabbing for money, and in parts the Prem has been like that as well. But I think when an owner can move a team from Baltimore, uh, to St. Louis, or they can move from St. Louis to LA because they feel like it. San Diego had a team when I first started watching. Now they in LA. St. Louis had a team. Now they in LA. Because St. Louis versus LA, you're not going to make the same amount of money. And I think the thing that I like about college football is you're never leaving. Hurricanes fans, when we were trash, they were still there. Alabama fans, when they were trash, they were still there. Now they're good. Same thing with Georgia, Oregon, University of Texas, Oklahoma. You look at some of those teams, they win 2 games, but you look at the stadium, it's packed. You got a student section, You've got, the boosters, they're out there. And yeah, you just get to a point where rain, hail, snow, shine, the fans are going to be out there. And I think that's the same kind of thing you get when you look at Prem. Arsenal, the Emirates will never be empty. Yeah, everybody makes the jokes. Oh, you've got empty seats, but it's not like the NFL where and I've seen it. I've seen it. Some Dolphins fans, when the Dolphins were trash, you could see on the TV that there were sections of the stadium not being full, right? And you get that sometimes in football, but with Arsenal, I think Arsenal, Man United. I think there's such big clubs that now it's gotten to the point that, and I think this is the problem. You'll still sell tickets. You still sell tickets to the Arsenal, whether or not they're doing well or not. Somebody will want to go watch, and yeah, you never get those empty stadiums as you would with American football. So that's with the NFL, and that's how I kind of view um, sport in the UK. I think that now being an American fan coming to the UK, it wasn't really a culture shock to me to see how tribal people are. Excuse me, hold on. How tribal teams are. When I went to the Emirates, I think Spain prepared me for it. I think Spain prepared me for like the chanting and I would say from coming from Spain to the UK, the Spanish are a little bit like Spanish stadiums are a lot more vibrant and passionate. Like there are times, I went to Saints games, Southampton Saints games, and there are times where you kind of hear people, cheering, and when the stadium goes, like you just don't hear anything sometimes. And the same at the Emirates. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's sometimes where people are trying to get the crowd behind them, and people are just kind of looking at you funny. Um, but in Spain, it was the opposite, man. In Spain, I remember sitting at the Vicente Calderon. I went with my wife, and I think they were playing Villarreal, and we were sitting in the Jesus nosebleeds. But that stadium was rocking. It was rocking the entire time. I've been to, Stadio Sanchez Ramon Pizjuan, and it was rocking. One side of the stadium singing to the next. You get that. I don't think you really get that in the UK, and that's what I would say the difference is. But the culture around football, I love, man. As an American, I love it because when I start talking about football, it doesn't matter how long you've watched it for. When you have a conversation about football, you can have a conversation about football with everyone, any and everyone. Um, I mean, not like everyone, but most of the people that watch, they don't kind of talk to you funny because you're an American. Like once you start talking football, it's just I've been on the train, talking football. I've been on the bus, I've been at work, chopping it up. So that kind of culture, um, it's a little bit different, man. I feel, but I love it. I love it. As far as American, and like I said, you can have tribalism in America with college football and the fanatics. You can have it with the NFL as well, but being a Hurricanes fan, being an Arsenal fan is more similar to me than being a Dolphins fan and an Arsenal fan. So that's just my thoughts on that. Um, what else we got? I mean, I get asked a ton from people. Um, One thing I do get asked about as well, and I get asked this a lot, is about refereeing. How people, how do I see prem referees versus, because I tell people I lived in Spain, so Spanish referees. How do I see how people treat referees? Um, U.S. UK. Now, when it comes to my opinion on British referees, I think that British referees and Prem referees, they're the first referees that you actually know their name. And I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that knowing the referee um, yeah, I don't think it's a thing that should probably be a thing. Um, like I'm struggling to think about any referee that I can name from American football, whether it's college or NFL. I just feel like they just kind of get on with it. Like, but prim referees, you know their names. You know, Mark Clattenburg, you know, Anthony Taylor. Like, why should I know the referee's name? And I feel like that in itself is part of the problem. I can't name any Spanish referee. I watched Spanish football for 4 years, like religiously. I can't name a referee. I don't know any of them. I didn't care. But I feel like for the UK, like the referees are part of the narrative. Like the referees are part of the people that are playing. So, you know, you hear referees, oh, Arsenal don't want this referee because um he helped Manchester City, and we don't want this referee because he's giving us record. You shouldn't know who the referees are. Like referees are just there to kind of referee the game. They're there to make sure the game runs smoothly, but they shouldn't be a part of the narrative. And I think that, you know, with refereeing, and then that leads me into like PGMOL and VAR. In Spain, VAR works. Why? Because you have people who don't have their egos running the VAR. Do you still make mistakes with VAR? Yes. Do you still make mistakes, you know, with referees? Of course you do. But it's not to the point where you know people are going back like I'm gonna use, you know, Anthony Taylor for example. They're going back 3 or 4 games. He gave this red against Arsenal, and in this game he gave this red against Arsenal. But in this game he didn't give the red against Manchester City. Like I don't think you have that. And the thing that I like about the NFL or the NBA, like mostly the NFL. So NFL replays are done. You have the on field referees. They can see the motion. They can see what's happening, and then the actual like video replay is in New York. So you could be in California, and it's in real time. Obviously, they got great technology. It's in real time, but you can be in California, and the people reviewing are in New York. They don't know you. They're a separate panel of people that review. That's what they do. That is their job to review. In like you've got guys on VAR who are literally the referees that refereed the last week. So and they're mates, bro. They're buddies. They're part of, you know, the referee association. So, you know, if I'm with, you know, my homeboy, you know, my homeboy, Mark Clattenburg, we just went out for drinks last week, and he's having a shocker. He's called a foul, wasn't a foul. He's given a yellow card, soft. Like, and now he sent a guy off who didn't make contact. Instead of saying, "Hey, Mark, man, you got this one wrong," it's like, "Oh, I don't want to make him have a worse day. There was a little bit of contact. I can probably say it's cool within the letter of the law. We'll just let it go." And I don't think it should be like that. I think referees should be impartial. And I think if you're asking someone to support or disprove referees, they too have to be independent and impartial. It can't be someone who knows the people who are on the pitch. It doesn't make it fair, because I know this guy personally. We've shared, you know, time together. We spent time outside of refereeing. We spent time outside of what we're doing. So, you know, you can't honestly say that like you're impartial. And I think when it comes to refereeing at any point, your feelings, your allegiances, it shouldn't come into how the game is refereed. You know, if I'm and they mostly do it like if I'm an Arsenal fan or I've been proven to be an Arsenal fan, I won't do Arsenal games. Fine. That's cool. You know, but if I'm from Manchester, I probably shouldn't do any Manchester games, because if I'm from Manchester, whether I'm a City fan or not, you know, let's say I'm a City fan, I'm not doing City games, but I'm doing United games. I'm doing Liverpool games. Those are my rivals. Like those are people. So in the back of my mind, that unconscious bias will always be there, and that's another thing I think that the refereeing in this country could kind of benefit from, is getting people who don't have a dog in the fight. Get some foreign referees. Get some referees who have refereed in the Czech Republic or Finland, and they have no kind of dog in the fight, and I think you'll get a better ref game. I think you'll get better outcomes with people who don't actually follow the prem, who don't care. Their job is to ref the game in the goodness of the game. I think that's the only way to make the refing better in the um, in the UK. Um, Big up Harris Football TV. Big up Gunnar Reekin just dropping in and hit the like. I appreciate it. Um, and while you're in here, I talked about West Ham as well. Because this is my general show. This is just a football show. We don't have to just talk about Arsenal. But as it was an Arsenal channel, and I'm an Arsenal fan, I thought I'd talk about it. But since you're in the chat, people have asked me about West Ham as well. Who do I think that West Ham are going down? And honestly, I hope not. I hope they don't go down. People are like, oh, they're a London rival. I think I dislike West Ham less than I dislike other London teams, if that makes sense. Like, I hate Chelsea. Can't stand Fulham. We only talk about the smaller ones like Millwall. But as far as like the bigger clubs, obviously hate that lot down the road. But every West Ham fan I've ever come across in life, they've always been good people, man. They've always been good people. When I started watching, the Bowling Ground was still a thing. And West Ham was a good watch. And then they moved into the Olympic Stadium, and it's that thing that I've spoke about, and I think I've been in Hammers Football TV chat, saying the same thing about the Orange Bowl and moving from Highbury. I think that when you move from your stadium, and we have to be honest, like sometimes your success outgrows where your home is. It outgrows your stadium, and I think that with the three teams that I mentioned, so with West Ham, with Arsenal, with the University of Miami, you've gotten to a point where you're winning things, or you're doing well enough in the league to where you're attracting new fans. Excuse me, and if you kind of outgrow your stadium, and it hurts, man. It hurts when you leave, and I'm pretty sure it hurt Hammers fans when left the Bowling Ground. I'm pretty sure it hurt Arsenal fans leaving Highbury. It hurt me leaving the Orange Bowl. It really did. It hurt because this is where I saw us win championships. This is where I saw us be the team that we are. And at first, you're just kind of like, man, I hope we'll get it back. I see Views in the chat. Big up, Views. If you got anything you want to ask or talk about, just put it in the chat. But you get to a point where you lose some of that soul by moving out of your stadium. And like I said, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to make the financials work, to attract new people. But you lose a little bit of your heart, you lose a bit of your soul moving into that new place. And I think for West Ham, that's part of the problem. They moved, and they had to move. They probably had to move because, the Bowling Ground is kind of like hybrid. You can't build onto it. You can't, if it's in residential housing, especially in London. I mean, London real estate is, diamond. So if you can't expand your stadium, you're becoming this big entity. You're becoming great. You have to move. But moving into the Olympic Stadium, I think, was tough at first because if you've ever been to Olympic Stadium or any stadium, it's got a track around it. And I think for teams like West Ham, the fans are everything. So being so far away from the pitch, going from a tight ground like the Bowling Ground to that open space. And it's the same thing that we had when I moved from the Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl, you've got a tier, it's up. You're feeling that sound. Like when teams come to play, you're on top of them. It feels like you're literally on top of them. And then you go to this big stadium, that's meant for NFL. It's a little bit more spaced out. It's gracious. And it's big. You've got new amenities. You've got better changing rooms. And it might be easier to get to. Because the Emirates is easy to get to. It's in between two stations. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of room for activity. But being so far away from the pitch, you know, and then sometimes being in that new place, you have fans who aren't sitting in the same area. You have it's and a lot of what a lot of teams don't do is they don't kind of take where you were as a season ticket holder and move you into that part of the stadium. And that's what one of my Arsenal fans said as well. Like when we moved from the Emirates, people weren't sitting in the same area. So you might be sitting next to someone at Highbury for 25 years and you know them and there's a section, you guys are rowdy. Now you've moved us all over the joint. You lose a little bit of that aura and that kind of space that you have. And that's the one thing that I think Liverpool kind of relish. The fact that they could build onto Anfield, they could expand Anfield, and it's not a problem because there's nothing else out there. Like there's nothing around there. Um, you know, Everton moving into a new stadium. Well, let's see how that works out. Because you lose some of that. Goodison Park. The one thing that I will commend Everton for, though, is they actually kept Goodison Park in the family. And I wish we had done the same with Highbury. Left it to the women and allowed, tours. And it would have been great. It would have been great. But, yeah, that's part of the problem that I think the Hammers are having. But I think they'll stay up, man. I think Forest, they've just sacked Sean Dyche. And they've got Vitor Pereira. And I just think going for a manager who's not a specialist and keeping the team up, it spells disaster. So if West Ham can get a couple wins under their belt, I think they'll stay up, and I hope they stay up. And honestly, I hope that team from down the road with the chicken on the beach ball, I hope they go down, to be fair. I see, big ups in the chat views. Hammer football, they need to rip up the book and start again with the standard referees. PGMO needs to be scrapped or get a legit body turn. Exactly. You can't have mates, police and mates. You're never gonna get, objectivity. You're always gonna get, well, this guy, this guy's my buddy. I don't want to make him look bad. And you'll never get fair refereeing that way. You'll always get this controversy. And a lot of people will say Arsenal been done hard by and City's been done hard by, Liverpool been done hard by. But yeah, man, I think everybody's been hard by because the standard of refereeing isn't that great. So that's just my bits on refereeing West Ham. Thank you for stopping by Hammers Football TV. I appreciate it. And dropping a like. And then the next thing I'm usually asked is YouTube. Why I got into YouTube, what I expect from YouTube. And honestly, I don't really expect much, man. I get on here to waffle. That's why it's called the Waffle House. I like to get on here and talk about football. I like to get on here and talk about Arsenal, Sevilla, Miami. I like speaking to people in the community. I like speaking to people, like hearing people's stories and stuff. When it comes to YouTube thing, I had always been making content. So when I go, when I went to visit stadiums, I've been to quite a few stadiums. And that's another question that I'm usually asked. But when I go visit stadiums and stuff, I like to blog and I like to tell about, what I saw and how I do. And I've been doing that since, I started following football properly 2014, 2015. So yeah, I've always done it on Facebook, but back then I didn't know anything about YouTube. I watched AFTV and Troops and them, but in my mind it's like, bro, nobody's gonna want to watch me talk. So yeah, I just do it on Facebook for my family. And one of these days, when I actually figure it out, I'm gonna actually put up some of the old videos that I have because there's some good ones in there. I've looked at them on Facebook. I'm pretty sure the Bayern 10-2 somewhere in there. But the highs are in there. Like Ludogorets, I think, is in there. Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil. I was talking about Aaron Ramsey. So yeah, it was a lot of me just kind of talking about my feelings back when I was just a new fan and stuff. And recently, I've been in comments. So people like Views, people like Shane, Curtis Shaw, just in the comments having a conversation. And I think I went on Curtis Shaw. I got gifted a membership, and I went Curtis Shaw TV, and we started talking about football on one of the member streams. And I'd have conversations with some of the bus drivers and some of the people around, and somebody was like, man, you should have a podcast. And I was like, eh, maybe. I don't think nobody want to, look at me. But one day I just kind of did it, and I am fortunate enough to have people like, Shane was one of the first people to invite me on. He invited me on the Bruised Banana, and I didn't make a complete fool of myself. And then Views had me on for uh, Under the Lens, and once again I didn't make a fool out of myself. And I was like, look at that, I did it twice. And then BBK had me on, and yeah, 3 times the charm. I didn't make a fool of myself. I was like, man, maybe I should try to do this. So I did. And now here I am. This is my third live stream. So yeah, it's been good, man. It's been good. I across all my platforms, I do TikTok. I put TikToks out there and Instagram. I have more than 500 followers, which is honestly 455 more people than I thought I would have. I thought I'd have about 45 people. I thought I'd have 50 max. I knew I was gonna have 5, regardless. I knew my wife was gonna be there. My aunt and uncle was gonna be there. A couple of my friends was gonna be there. So I was excited with 5 people. But the fact that I got 300 and I think 77 now, 378 on YouTube, and I get likes and shares and stuff. And yeah, man, I just do it for the fun. I like enjoying it. I enjoy it. I like taking the mick out of people like Views, because I think Views is cool. Um, Sometimes him and Shane are a little bit surly, but I get it. I get why people are not happy, because these guys, Views, Shane, Normski, DJ, these guys have seen the great times of Arsenal. These guys have seen the great times of football. And I'm new to this, relatively new. I've been following football. As I said, I followed international football for a while. But the Prem thing, I'm new to it. So these guys have seen the promised land. These guys have seen the top. And knowing what it takes to be at the mountaintop, yeah, you can't just kind of sit there and go, man, we've had a good run. Well, how many trophies did you win? Oh, we didn't win any, but we look good. Well, it's not the same. Well, it's not the same as watching your captain lift a trophy. It's not the same as going to the trophy. I've been in this country nearly 8 years, and I still have yet to see a trophy parade. I'll take the Carabao Cup trophy parade. I'll be there in the rain, in the wind, watching my captain his armpits. Even Hammers Football TV. He's seen them win the Conference League. He's seen that. He's been there. And here I am still waiting on the trophy for the third biggest club in England. And I think that's part of the reason like people are kind of up in arms is, we should be lifting trophies. We should be at the pinnacle. And you have no right to win everything, but you should be winning something. So yeah, that's part of the reason that I started. So I just like to give my opinion and my thoughts on things. People ask me, what are you thinking? What are you doing next? And my plan is just to keep doing this. My plan is to keep talking to you guys. My plan is to maybe maybe I get invited to a couple more things. And I will just do what I do. I'll waffle, say what I say. And hopefully, I it'll grow. It'll grow. I love community. I love people talking to me. I love people debating me. Even if you're not a fan of my team, even if you're not a fan of the sport, if you come across me, have a conversation. I like talking to people. Another thing I want to talk to, and this one's gonna be shorter because the missus wants me to do things, and I owe it to her. I want to talk once again. We're going to Arsenal stuff. I wanted to talk about Bukayo Saka. He just signed his new contract. I think it's a 5-year contract, and as an Arsenal fan, that's so good to hear. Like, so good to hear that we're locking people up. But in the group chat, and that's another thing I wanted to touch on as well, because people have asked me about that as well, so I have to remember. But in the group chat, you're talking about Saka. And we're talking about kind of, the people were talking about because he's having a rough time selling him. And I don't think we should sell him. I think that if this manager stays, even because I think the only way he stays is if we win something. But if he stays, you kind of worry for Saka because we watched Saka limp for months and months and months, and then he tore his hamstring. And if you've ever played a sport, torn hamstring, torn ACLs, anything that has to do with your legs, from that point on, you're kind of always thinking about it. If I take the wrong step, if I run too fast, if I cut too quick, like, will it go again? And having a major operation like a hamstring has to play on you. So it's something that, he'll be thinking about. As far as Saka, the person, the player, yeah, give him like some guy said in the group chat, give him a lifetime contract, man. Saka, I commend Saka so much, and we talked about this as well. You know, I watch England, and seeing what happened after England lost their lead on penalties, and seeing how people treated him, seeing the racist abuse that him and the other two, I think it was it Sterling, Sancho? It was Sancho and Rashford, I think it was. But seeing how those guys were treated, big up DG. Seeing how those guys were treated after Euros, it could have been so easy for Bukayo Saka to come back after the way he was treated and just hide, just say, I'm done. I'll just be quiet and I won't let my personality show and I'll let it get to me. And he didn't do that. He came back and he was better, and I commend him for that. I commend him for that. One, because Arsenal needed that. Saka carried us for a little while, man, and we needed that. But to hit that low and to still have the mental and the heart to keep going, I think for us, it was big. For Arsenal, it was big. For him, it was big. And for England, it was big. Just to know that, yeah, these people talked about me, but I'll take that on my shoulders and I'll keep going. And for me, Saka has been a bright spot. He's a star boy. I got his jersey in the back. He's a star boy. He's amazing. And I'm glad he got a 5-year contract. One thing I will say, though, is Arsenal always do this. I bet you he signed that contract a couple months ago. And because Arsenal drew with Brentford, and then we went against Wigan, and instead of people being like, oh, we won, people kind of like, yeah, but it was Wigan. They were like, uh-oh, they're a little bit shaky. Let's give you some good news. And we got another game. Like, that's how I feel. Oh, we're going to announce Saka. Maybe it'll get the fans on board, and now we'll go play Wolves. Like, that's how this club operates. Because I guarantee you, if it wasn't Wigan, we had lost in the FA Cup, this would definitely be out. And they'd be like, it's okay. And then they release some merch, some Saka merch. Because that's what this club does. Anytime there's bad news or fans are on the rocks, it's a merch drop. And I'm not going to lie to you, I am a merch whore, right? I am a merch. I have merch. I mean, one of these days when I get this channel to a point where I can actually record on the move, I will show you guys my collection of jerseys. I mean, and it's not just Arsenal jerseys. It's basketball jerseys. It's football jerseys from Barcelona, Inter Milan, Roma. I have quite a collection. It's not, recent collection. Let's say that recent collection, but I do. And yeah, so when Arsenal, and if it's burgundy merch, they will get me every time. I won't lie to you. If Arsenal could release a tea towel in burgundy, and I'm gonna buy it because that's my favorite color, and they know they got me. DG's in the chat says Saka should probably play in attendance. He's properly healed. He's got the mentality. Yes, but will our manager do it? Yeah, I don't think he will, man. I don't think he'll. I mean, for me, I felt like he played Saka in the 10 because he had no choice. And the one thing that annoys me about our manager, because I was a coach. I am a coach. I coach American football. And I'm not on as much money as him. I don't get interviewed after games, but it's one of the things I have been asked, and it's accountability. And one of the things that annoys me about him is he likes to make things sound like after the fact, sound like he's profound. Like, bro, you played soccer in the 10 because we literally had nobody else. And now he's like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to play soccer in the 10 for a while. So why haven't you done it before now? Why don't you do it in the Carabao Cup? Why don't you do it in the early rounds of the FA Cup? Why don't you do it, against Kairat Almaty in the Champions League, games that we knew was gonna win? Why don't you do it then? Now we got injuries, and he's like, oh, let's try it. Nah, man. Nah, I'm not hearing that. You weren't thinking about that, bro. So yes. Yep, you can tell Saka won't take risks anymore. He's worried about his previous injury, and I've been there, man. And I am fortunate enough, and if you watched me last time, I say I played defensive tackle. I tore my knee my second year of university. I tore it, and it was a freak accident, man. Standing on the sideline, somebody got tackled out of bounds. I moved out the way, but I didn't move far enough, and helmet to the knee. I tore my meniscus, and I think I sprained my MCL. Luckily enough, that was all it was. My knee was as big as a golf ball. I mean, not a golf ball, a tennis ball. It was fat. I had bruising. It was awful. And when I got back from that injury, even though I'm a big dude, I don't run that fast. But when I would do certain cuts and I would my knee would click a little bit, it would worry me. It would worry me because I'm like, dang, I got lucky with only a sprained MCL. Will this be the ACL going? And now I can't play anymore. That was all, it was all going through my mind. I'm not getting paid millions, man. I get paid a fraction of what he makes a week in a year. So me just being a normal amateur athlete, you thinking about that. And I'm not running as fast as that guy. I'm not as fit as Bukayo Saka. So if I'm worrying about it as a fat lineman, I know he's definitely worrying about it. So yeah, it's just something you got to think about, bro. Stony Real said, "Put it all for sale." No, I'm not putting it off for sale. I know you'd like me to, but I ain't doing it. That's my wife. She's in the chat. But yeah, I think that the amount of space that my jerseys take up, I think it just gets on her nerves, and that's fine because I love them like I love her. It's okay. So DG says the burgundy merch is lit. Yeah, I can't lie either, man. I can't. My wife got me the third kit as well. The third kit, yeah, man. I wanted the scarf. I wanted everything. And then it's not just the third kit. It's like the old Arsenal, the old AFC, the hexagon, bro. Yeah, they got me. They got me. So yeah, when Burgundy Arsenal stuff comes out, and I don't know if you guys have seen, like I said, seen the new leaked away shirt, which is gonna be navy, and it's got the gold and red. Yeah, bro, I got it. So yeah, they always gonna get me. So my wife said she love all the burgundy stuff too. Terry Tipp says big up Boricua and Armando, big up. Pito says big up Gunarica, not an Arsenal fan. Pero voy a mí todo el tiempo. Yeah, big up. I like Puerto Ricans coming in the chat. And I won't lie to you, my Spanish está basura. Basura, right? And much to my abuela's chagrin, I'm working on it. Because, Benito's got me working on my Spanish. But I'm working on it. But yeah, man, Puerto Ricans always welcome in the chat. And Pito, this isn't, this is just the Waffle House. You don't have to be an Arsenal fan. The last Waffle House we talked about Benito in the Super Bowl. It's just a place for me to make a community and talk to the people about pretty much anything, man. mostly sport because that's what I like. Um, Ricky Watters, one of the goats. Yeah. Um, excuse me. Let me drink some water. But yeah, it's just a spot for me to kind of talk to my community and just get some stuff off my chest, man. Usually sports though, because um, sports are kind of a way for me to get away from life, man. I think it's a way for everybody to kind of get away from life. And the one thing, being a fan of sports, and the one thing that annoys me sometimes about being an Arsenal fan is I'm critical, man. I like to think that um, I like to take the good and the bad. So I'll point out the good. But I think with Arsenal, we've seen so much of the good without anything. You can't help but point out the bad. Um, and with me, I like to just analyze stuff. I like to talk about things. But people say that like people think that because I'm critical, I don't enjoy Arsenal. Like um because you say, I'm not a fan of this manager or I don't like the way he's playing, I don't enjoy. I'm an Arsenal fan. And I'm a football fan. I won't lie. And, I watch Sevilla, even though Sevilla are they're basura. They're mid-table now, and it sucks because when I watched them, they were Europa League and they were just on it. And yeah, it's different now. But even though I'm annoyed with how my club is being run, I still love it. I still watch. I'm still there, and that's why I don't think I'll do watch alongs. And I think it'll take me a lot of people begging me to do watch along, because when I'm in the zone of watching Arsenal, when I'm in the zone of watching the Dolphins, when I'm in the zone of watching the Hurricanes, I'm into it. It's like I'm there. It's like I'm part of it. So I laugh, I cry, I shout at the TV, and that's how I feel. And when we win, I'll be ecstatic, and when we lose, I'm not. So that's just the life of a sports fan. So I don't let it get to me. In that bubble, in that 4 hours, the world's ending because Arsenal have lost. But once that period is over, I'm back to reality, and I'm happy, bro. I'm happy. I'm happy with being able to just get out of life, and I think football, especially, growing up in Miami, sport especially is a way for people to get away from real life, man. You go to the Emirates, you go to Alabama Stadium for 3 or 4 hours. You don't have to worry about bills. You don't have to worry about, your girlfriend leaving you. You don't have to worry about, anything, your medical issues, nothing. For 3 or 4 hours, you're just there. You're with the love of your life, Arsenal or Real Madrid or, the Miami Dolphins, the Baltimore Ravens, you know, tennis, F1 teams. You're just there. And that's the thing I love about sport. It just gets you away from life. And that's a great thing about it. So this is just a space for me to just talk about sport, because this right here is me getting away from all the work that I do outside of YouTube, all the life that goes on, as I'm sure it goes for everybody in the chat. It's just a way for you to get away and say, I can focus on something I love, and that's what I feel about sport and Arsenal. Gunarican, do you think Arsenal can win a trophy this season? Terry Tibbs. There's a different. I want to differentiate between can we or will we. Can we? Of course we can. We can win every trophy that we're in because I think we have the squad to do so. Will we is the other question. Now, if you're asking me, will we? I have been adamant from the beginning, and people call me out all the time. Oh, you don't like the manager. I still think we're gonna win the Prem. It might be delusion. It is rational delusion, and I tell people all the time I'm rationally delusional. The rationality says what in you says that we are winning the Prem from previous evidence. The delusion says I don't care. We're still gonna win it, and that's where I'm at now. I think we'll win the Prem, and I honestly think we'll win the Carabao Cup. And if that happens, I don't care what else. If we get dumped out the next round in the Champions League, don't care. If we get dunked out of the next round of the FA Cup, don't care. If we win the league and we win the Carabao Cup, I'll be over the moon because I can finally go into work. I can finally go into football practice. I can finally go into the supermarket with chess. I can wear my Arsenal merch and say, look up, peasants. Look up, peasants. We're at the top of the mountain. You see me, I can't see you. Man United fans, I can't see you. You ain't won a league since 2013. Chelsea fans, I can't see you. I don't care what you won. Did you win the league this year? No. But every year I go into work and it's like pelters, bro. It's like, you bottled it again. Oh, what did you win this year? Second again, ole. Like it's tough, bro. And living in the UK, I don't know how it is for people that live outside the UK, but living in the UK, you can't run from it. You can't. Now people know that I follow Arsenal, especially where I work. I can't run from it. I could go in at this point not wearing any merch, and I will still get bantered because people know that I'm an Arsenal fan. So I'd like to just be, for once, I'd like to be the smug one, walking through my hands folded like, Pompey fan. Yeah, what you guys went? I won the Prem. Like, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. Terry Tips saying good reading my Portuguese is worse than my Spanish. I'm so embarrassed. Just work on it. This is the one thing I will say, right? With me in Spanish, I understand more than I speak. Because I grew up, sometimes parents, especially parents who immigrated somewhere, sometimes they can be one of two types. They can be the type that is, my parents were, my mom was, so I'm half Puerto Rican, but my mom was very proud to be Puerto Rican. But because you work so hard to come to America, you work so hard, and people, even in Miami, people will still be like, they will treat you differently because you speak Spanish in certain parts. So I think my mom was more like, I want you to be American. I want you to be in this so that people don't look at you differently because you speak Spanish, because you're this. Like, they don't treat you how they treated me. I think she also didn't realize that I was black, so it didn't matter. But, that's how it was. My grandma, on the other hand, she said, you Puerto Rican. I'll speak to you in Puerto Rican. So, in Spanish. It's funny, right? Because people be like, he said Puerto Rican. Puerto Rican Spanish is different, by the way. I don't know if you ever listened to Bad Bunny. Puerto Rican Spanish and Spain Spanish, night and day, bro. I tried to speak some Spain Spanish in Puerto Rico. They looked at me like I was, Lord Farquaad, bro. Like, it was not. They were like, what are you saying, bro? Like, that is so proper. So, yeah, it's something I had to kind of work on. But, yeah, it's one of those things, Terry Tibbs, just keep working on it, man. Like, I find it hard to speak, and what I've started doing, and I look like a weirdo, but I don't care. I just start talking to myself. I start calling out words that I see. If someone says something to me or I do something and it sounds tragic, but if I'm walking and I see a tree, I'll say the word for tree and I'll kind of describe what I'm doing. And it sounds goofy as hell, man, but you just got to get that confidence. You get the more words, you get the confidence of speaking. And when your mouth and your body kind of gets to the point where you're speaking it randomly and it becomes second nature to you, then it doesn't matter how you speak to other people. And the one thing I have found living in Europe, when I go to Spain and I speak my broken Spanish, I have never once been laughed at. No one's ever treated me different. They speak fast, but when you tell them to speak slow, they try, they help. So you just got to keep going. With the Portuguese, just keep going. And I promise, man, in a couple years, you'll look back and be like, I can't believe that I was just, basically keeping myself from speaking the language. Terry Tibbs said Emery has to be a banger in the Europa League with a very average squad. They did, man. Evan Banega, Carlos Baca. He had some Beto the goalkeeper. He had some decent players. But Unai Emery is a Europa League level manager, man. And we see Aston Villa probably fall off. But Unai Emery, he's a type of manager that he will get you from mid-table to competing for top four. Um, but he'll get you to competing for top four, and he may win like the mid-tier level trophy, but that's kind of his level. Like, he did it. He won at PSG, but he wasn't winning the Champions League, and I think some managers is just like that. DG said, "Gotta go. Have a good evening." I appreciate DG for stopping by. Thank you so much. And he said, "Thank you, Gunarican. Hope you're right, man. We need to win the Prem, and we definitely do. We're running out of opportunities. We're running out of chances to win the Prem." And I said this in the ammo check that you get to a point like the Buffalo Bills where you keep going to championships and not winning them, and then your window shuts. If we don't win the Prem, if Arsenal don't win the Prem, then it could be a while. And I look at teams look at the teams that have won things in leagues they shouldn't have, right? And this is where I kind of talk about me having watched other things. Like you look at La Liga, for example. Atletico Madrid have no business winning La Liga. Like the amount of money that they make and spend in comparison to Real Madrid and Barcelona, night and day. But they've done it. Dortmund, Dortmund have no business beating Bayern Munich. They've done it. Bayer Leverkusen have done it. But they took their opportunity. Leicester will probably never ever win the Prem again. They'll probably never ever win the Prem. But they won it that one time, and that was their window. Leicester looked at it and said, "We will never get this opportunity again. Let's go for it." And they did it. And that's a story that we will always have, in Prem football. The time, and it sucks as an Arsenal fan because Arsenal should have won that league. But you can't even be upset because Leicester did something they should have never done. They should have never done. And with Arsenal, we can do something that we haven't done before. We could win a treble. I don't think we'll win the quadruple. I think the quadruple is beyond us. But if we won, the junior treble and won the Champions League and the Prem and the Carabao Cup, then we can say, to our Manchester Uniteds and Manchester Cities and Chelsea, we're sitting at the big boy table now. We've done it. Everything you've done, we've done. But if we don't do it, you've wasted 4 years of our players' time. You've wasted 4 years of our fans' time. And we have nothing to show for it. And that's why when people ask me, would I take the domestic cup double? I would, because I love trophies. But that wouldn't be enough for me to keep the manager. But I'm not going into that, because I said I want to talk about him. Hendo Gooner in the house. Good evening, Gooner Rican and all people watching. Good evening, Hendo. Monaco 2, PSG 2 on 42 minutes. Yeah, I heard Balogun got a brace, man. And that's another player, man, Balogun. I thought, we were talking about Florian Balogun being like the next guy. And he wasn't, bro. He didn't do what he thought he did. I mean, he's at Monaco now. But that's what we're talking about. PSG, a team beating PSG to the title, Monaco beating them, to the title. That was their window, and that's what we need to do. Hennigan also said Arsenal season ticket price is going up 3.9%. It's crazy, bro. And let's not even talk about season prices. I've been an Arsenal member since 2017, and I'm still over 25,000 away from getting a season ticket. So yeah, we almost hitting 10 years, and I think I started at 46, and the only reason I went to 20, I think I'm 26 now. The only reason I went that far because the whole Wenger out thing was happening, and people were giving up their season ticket. And I was like, yeah, I'm getting in there. Maybe it'll be in a couple years. And now that we've been good, I've been at the same spot for 2 years in a row. I think I've only moved maybe 300 or 400 spots. Ain't moved too far. Hold on. So yeah. What else was there was another bit, right? Another question that people ask me. I always shout out the South Florida Gunners. Um, and some people think that it's like, oh, for the Gooner fans in South Florida, but South Florida Gunners is actually my local supporters group. And it's run by a dude named Shane. And I met Shane when he was running with the Fort Lauderdale Gooners, and he let me into his group chat even though I lived in the UK, and I be in there causing chaos. Yeah, we cause chaos. You got the negativos, you got the positivos, and we just go at each other. It's fine, but it's all love because we all love Arsenal. But South Florida Gunners, I want to talk about them because I think supporters clubs in America are the lifeblood of Arsenal in America. Being in the UK, it's so easy for me to go to a pub and watch Arsenal. I used to do it in Southampton. The Scholars Arm used to play the games. Um, but when you're in America, in a country as big as America, you have to find kind of your people. And the thing that I love about South Florida, and there are different supporters clubs. So in South Florida proper, there are four that I know of. I think it's the Palm Beach Invincibles, the Fort Lauderdale Gooners, the Miami Gooners, and the South Florida Gunners. And it's amazing because people don't really realize how passionate these fans are. And I said, anytime I can bring awareness to these supporter clubs, um, I will, because I think that being in the UK now, I don't think UK fans really realize how much of a sacrifice watching the Arsenal worldwide is. I remember when I was in North Carolina, it's Eastern time, so a 12 o'clock kickoff, that's 7 a.m. I'm waking up at 6:30, to make sure I got breakfast and I'm up to watch Arsenal. And that's just the East Coast. Florida has four time. I mean, America has four time zones. So if it's 7:30 on the East Coast, on the West Coast, we looking at 4:30 or maybe 3:30. And I don't think that now that I live in the UK, I realize how convenient it is for me to watch games, to go to games. Like, my mate will call me to send me a text on a Sunday, and they'd be like, "Hey, bro, are you getting off of work early?" I'd be like, "Maybe." He say, "Hey, you want to go see the midweek game?" Sure. I hop off of the train. I hop off work at 3 o'clock. Hop on the train, 4 o'clock. I'm in. I'm in London at 6. I'm to the stadium by 7:30 before the 8 o'clock kickoff. I've done that. You know, if I want to watch Arsenal, then I can just literally go. My work day is done. It's great. All right, I'll take a bath. I'll get my kid on. I'll go down to the pub if I feel like it, or just stay in here and watch. It's so convenient for me to watch. But for guys who live outside of them, outside of time zones, outside of this time zone, it's hard, man. Even when I live in Spain, the game starts at 8 here. It's 9 p.m. there. So, if I got work the next day, I'm hoping that we can get to it before, if you have extra time. I think that UK fans don't realize that because the match is here, it caters to your schedule. But when you're back home in America, and I always shout them out because it'll be times where we'll have a Champions League game start at 7:30. Well, I mean, that's 2:30 for them. Them dudes still at work. Or they have a 5:30, they have um a 5:30 kickoff and they're doing it at 12:30. Those guys are on lunch watching the club. And I think that that's something like when I hear match going fans in the UK and they're like, "Oh, international fans aren't the same. They don't understand." I think they understand more than anything. Firstly, because Arsenal, and it's not just Arsenal. I'm just using Arsenal as a reference because I'm an Arsenal fan. But it's any club. If you're a City fan, if you're a Real Madrid fan, Barcelona, Sevilla, like if you're watching those clubs and you're not in the time zone that it's for, you're giving up your time, you're giving up your energy, you're giving up everything to watch this club. And I think that that's the beauty of football. I could be in Brazil and there's somewhere to watch football. I could be in Cape Town. There's somewhere to watch football. I could be in Malaysia. There's somewhere to watch football. And I think that that's the beauty of it. And I always shout out my supporters club because that's, when I'm home, that's where I watch football. Like those are the guys I'm with. Those fans who wake up, who go to the pub, who give their hard-earned time, money to go watch us because they can't get. I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate I get to go see Arsenal. I've seen Brighton. I've seen Manchester United. I've seen the North London Derby. Excuse me. I've seen Manchester City on New Year's Day. Like, I'm so fortunate to have been able to go see these matches. And there are guys at the pub who have yet to even come to London, but they love the club, and that's the beauty of it. So I always shout out the South Florida Gunners. And I like the South Florida Gunners because I feel like I'm a South Florida kid. I grew up in Palm Beach County. I'm born in Miami-Dade County. And my home of address when I'm in the States is in Broward. So I feel like South Florida just encompasses everything. And it encompasses me. So yeah, shout out to the South Florida Gunners. Shout out to Shane. Shout out to all those guys. Especially dudes who I banter with like Brian. So yeah, it's that I keep getting messages about the other game. So I'm gonna wrap up in a bit. But yeah, I appreciate the people who came over, Hendo, DG, Terry Tibbs, even the ones who don't support. So Pito, my lovely wife who came in and dropped the comment because she probably wants me to come back. Hammers Football TV views. AJ, as always, thanks for stopping in. And I'll end on this. Last little bit. Football is fun. And I love football fans. I love football as in the sport. And if you've made it this far and you're not an Arsenal fan, still join the community. If you're just popping in, drop a like, drop a comment. I love all football fans. As you saw, Hammers Football TV is in here. I love the sport. And I love football because it's an opportunity. And I always tell people this because I love American football. I'm American, obviously, so I grew up on American football. But the thing that I love about football more than anything is it doesn't matter where in the world you are. You can play the sport. You can watch it. Like, I remember growing up, we used to play with the soccer ball. And you didn't have a goal. You probably had 2 trash cans or you had 2 sticks on the ground. And seeing people from places like Brazil, seeing people impoverished, people, they're rich people who watch football, they're poor people who watch football, kids, older folks. Like, it's an opportunity for us all to get together. And I think that when you look at the World Cup, maybe not this one because America is in turmoil, but you look at the World Cups and you see people from different shapes, not people from different shapes, people from different places, people of different shapes, sizes, skin colors, backgrounds. You look at them and they're together, right? They're together. And the last question, right? Because I just remembered and I was supposed to do it early. The question I get is, who do I support for football? And I said that whole thing because I'm a Puerto Rico fan, but unfortunately, Puerto Rico don't really do well because we're a small island. We don't really get past, we might get to the Gold Cup, but we don't really get past anything. But I'm Puerto Rico first and foremost. But I usually have a habit of supporting the team that I live. So I've been supporting England because I've lived here the longest. And the one thing I love about it is English fans. I put on the top, and I'm American. You can hear I'm American. You can see I'm American. Just the way my demeanor is, you can tell I ain't British. But wearing the England shirt, when I went to Wembley twice, and when I walk around the hospital with the England shirt when we're doing well, it's just that feeling that people say, it doesn't matter what you look like. You put on the England shirt, and it's great until it isn't, as we saw with Saka. But I think that's just a minority of people who are just knobs. But when I put the England shirt on, when I put the Spain shirt on, or I put the Puerto Rico shirt on, I feel like we're all in it together. You know, we're all in sport. We're all in a place to watch the sport that we love. And that's the one thing I love about football. It's the one thing I love about Arsenal. The one thing I love about even with Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan. Everyone knows my name is Gunarican. But when I talk to Liverpool fans, when I talk to West Ham fans, yeah, we have banter. Yeah, we go back and forth. But at the end of the day, we love the sport. You know, people love the sport. People love the togetherness. They love the tribalism. You know, I can have a beer with the West Ham fan, even though we're playing each other. You know, now Spurs fans are different because yeah, no, thank you. But for the most part, and I have Spurs fans friends. I take the mick out of them all the time. But football brings us together, and I think it's an opportunity for us to just put things aside and be happy. And that's what football does for me. It makes me happy. It brings me togetherness with the people around me, and even you legends in the chat like that. We're here and we're talking about football, and nothing else matters. Um, Hendon Gooner, last comments. Hendon Gooner said, "Glad to have caught a bit of your show. I'm glad for you to have stopped by. I hope you liked it. I hope that you'll join me in the future." And look forward to seeing you at the Barrington Sports Bar for the Carabao Cup final on 22nd of March. That's a shout. 22nd of March. That's a shout. Um, yeah, I'll see if I can make it. I'll put it on the calendar. Because I'd like to meet more Gooners. I like to, just meet more football people. So on that note, thank you guys so much for listening to the Waffle, for joining the Waffle House, for having a good night with me. And as always, y'all take it easy. Love each other. Love the game. And have the best week that you can. Before I go, remember, I will be doing the ammo check hopefully at the weekend. I don't remember when the game is at the moment. I don't know if it's on a Saturday or Sunday. Let me check before we go, so I can tell you guys what's coming up next. So I wanted to try to do it on the weekend, but that's the thing with the schedule. I want to get a day where it's not conflicting with matches. So we play on the Sunday. So I will do the ammo check before before the Tottenham game. We'll do the ammo check on the Saturday before the Tottenham game. So make sure you put your notification bells out for that. And follow me on TikTok. I'll be doing it before and after the Wolves game. I'll be doing my little TikTok before then. It'll be on Instagram as well if that's not for you. But yeah, y'all take it easy. You have a lovely night. And I hope for the best for everybody who's watching. And if you're not watching, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And you guys take it easy. And I'll see you on the next time.